I'm delighted to introduce you
Margaret Thulier.
and tell me, why are we here today?
We're here now today to celebrate the first European Sustainable Communities Day. So in fact now the date, I think it was the 22nd, but we weren't able to do it yesterday. So we're doing it today instead here in the Orchard.
Yes.
And this is hosted by Transition Town Kinsale,
Yes.
which is a worldwide movement which started in the college in Kinsale.
Yeah, now is
This is the 11th year.
11 years, yeah.
We had the 10 year. So we're here in the orchard of the sports complex in Kinsale. A student from the college was doing a project in 2009, and she found an orchard on this site, and she approached Soil to see if it could be replanted. And they agreed, but this isn't the original site of the orchard, was over in farther, but this area was allocated. It's about half an acre, 3/4 of an acre maybe. So it's a community orchard. First of all, the hedge in front was planted with native planting, the one here to give shelter, and it's very sheltered. The site is south facing, so it's really sheltered. It's very warm today now here.
Yes, it's fantastic.
And then a whole range of fruit and nut trees planted. It's not planted in lines, in rows, like kind of, you know, in formal arrangement. So there's a big wide of fruit and nut trees planted, fruit bushes, and as say the native hedging over here. So the idea is that it's to be a sustainable place, a place for recreation, a place for people to learn, enjoy, and a whole community.
And Margaret, I'm sure that today our guests, they are going to appreciate,
Yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely, yes.
And the weather is amazing.
It's perfect,
And Mary made fantastic vegan
sandwiches and
sandwiches.
things, yes.
So all the vegan people are very welcome. And you made a yummy,
yes,
spongy
from local apples.
with local apples.
Yes, and I think you did too.
Yeah,
did you?
yeah. I made 3 vegan apple pies, and look over there. There are some teachers, isn't it?
Yes, we
From
have
permaculture.
We have, yes. We're working with them, and we're like Transition Town are working with the students and the teachers to maintain the orchard as well.
Yes.
You know, and so that they learn about pruning trees and they learn about managing the orchard as well. So it's a whole community effort, really. And it's a
Thank
wonderful
you,
place.
thank you, Margaret. Thank you. And here, Mary, that she made the vegan sandwich. Hello.
Hello, Margaret.
We had a lovely chat with Margaret, and now all our friends, they can discover everything about Transition Town and this event that I think is an amazing event for the community, isn't it?
It's very nice.
Yeah. And does it take a lot of effort from all of you?
No, not really. No. Small bit.
So
You know?
we can say that everyone can join.
Everyone can join. Well,
So what do they have to do?
We're
What do they
always
have to do?
looking for people to join Transition Town Kinsale.
So, have you heard?
Yeah.
Good.
New blood.
Can you say to our
We
friends?
want new ideas, new blood, new people.
Thank you, ma'am. What do you think about my apple pie? I know that you can't say
make it?
something. Yeah.
Did you?
Very nice. Bella.
Too sweet,
have to
maybe.
say that now.
No, with local apples.
Excellent. Very nice. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm Margaret Thulier. I'm involved with Transition Town Kinsale and mainly part of the workshop about the trees. So we'll let John go ahead now. So
Well, actually, the site here is divided into two. It's in two different townlands. On this side here, you have Kapok, which is the townland of the field that's recently ploughed, you know, for agricultural purposes. And then on roughly the line I'm standing on here, to my right, is the townland of Ballinacopy. And all of these townlands have their origins in the Irish language. So Ballinacopy would be the little town of the twisting, indented inlet. And you can see Ballinacopy and how that would have happened. Camogue then finally, where the new houses are built over in that area, it's known as Camogue. Irish has to do with a twisted inlet. The reason why we started the talks down here is that I just want you to imagine the place, say 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago. Because when I was a child growing up here, none of this development existed. Evelyn would remember it as well. None of those houses, the schools, anything else, there was absolutely nothing existed. There was one large building up there on the hill which has got roughly where those white houses are, which was the old monastery. That's all that existed. But 100 years ago or so like that, there was two houses located on this particular spot. And they were the houses of a Mr. Newman and a Mr. Bishop. And I'll just speak about those in a moment. But physically, what is hugely important is that about 1830, and I have a map here, which indicates a drawing of the area in 1835 or so, and the marsh, the causeway across which we are very familiar with, that now blocks off what we describe as the marsh, didn't exist. So this whole area was wide open to the river. And there you have the river passing up. We're up here in this area, just in this particular area, and we're looking down on the marsh. But as you can see, there is no causeway across. And that made a huge impact when the importance of that being open to the sea, to the river, was hugely important, because you can imagine twice a day you had high tides. The water filled up, and it filled up that area to the depth, to a sufficient depth that you were able to get quite large vessels to bring and transport goods right up to the back of the town, and what I want to point out to you here is bounding the orchard area here, the garden area that has just been developed, is a double ditch.
So just to get back to the orchard here now, in 2008-9, Tara de las Casas, she was a student here, and Ananda, they were given a task of doing a project about food. So they came down and they were over in this area, farther over here where the orchard was. They found apples and they said, oh, this is great, now we'll be able to do this. And then the next time they came back, the apples were gone. The orchard was gone. So anyway, they consulted with Soila then, and after much negotiation, Soila agreed that a new orchard could be planted. The aim of the orchard is to inspire and demonstrate local fruit and nut production, as well as providing a sanctuary for biodiversity.
Thomas Riedmuller. I'm originally from Germany. 20 years ago I came to Ireland, and what we ended up doing was we bought a piece of land about 3/4 of an hour west from here, near Enniskeen, and the plan was to develop a sort of an inhabited demonstration eco-village. And we had sort of ambitious plans, and they were sort of whittled down between the real-life obstacles in working with the planning authorities and with neighbours and fears of a new thing. So anyway, but that is known as the Hollies Centre for Practical Sustainability, and we work with local schools, primary, secondary, further education, third level, and with community groups. We live there. It's a small group of 6 families, and we manage about 30 acres. And it is also an education centre, and it's recognised as a charity for that educational work. But I'm mentioning this because the course, that the Practical Sustainability course, as it was called, or what is now called the Permaculture Sustainable Horticulture course at the college here in Kinsale, it was only really possible through the visionary sort of foresight of John Thulier, who made it possible that Rob Hopkins, who was a partner on the land at the Hollies with us. So we were 2 families at the start. One was the Hopkins and the other were the Riedmullers. And it was John who made it possible that Rob Hopkins started that course in 2001, wasn't it? Yes. And it has grown from strength to strength. We're now well overbooked with there's after 40 students we try to close it for a waiting list, but the floodgates are wide open. Permaculture is, if you have never, hands up just out of interest, who has never heard the word permaculture before? Yeah, that's natural enough, it's a piece of jargon. What it is in a nutshell, because I've taken over teaching that, it is an approach to designing human living in tune with nature rather than against her. Because a lot of mainstream industrial society, which Ireland is really, and industrial agriculture and industrial everything that feeds most people and employs most people, is actually not working in tune with nature. So now quickly coming to orchards, right? But I think this is that context is quite important to think about, because 20 years ago sustainability was not in the national vocabulary. It had hit the record internationally in 1992 with a definition by the United Nations, and it was defined as a way of living that is sustainability is defined as a way of living that today's choices do not compromise or do not limit the choices of future generations. Today, most of us in mainstream society are living as if we had 4 or 5 planets, the resources of 4 or 5 planets. It's not sustainable. It's actually collective suicide. So when I realized that at the age of 25 or 30, and I started having a family, I thought, what are my children going to say to me when they are, interested in the world? If you excuse my English, I'm picking up quite a bit of Irish sort of colloquialism. Daddy, the world is fucked. What did you do about it? and I was afraid of that moment. Now I have 3 boys who are over 20. Historically, an agricultural country, right, and still is. Do you know how much? Like it's mainly beef and only 10% grains, and a little bit of dairy. Okay. Just in rough strokes, 90% of Irish production goes abroad. It's not wise for an island nation to be exporting 90% of what our land produces and to be importing 90% of what we eat. It's not intelligent. So permaculture design provides some of an answer to that. And now food, because if the boats, the ferries, and the airports, and Ryanair is struggling at the moment, for whatever. But if that stopped in the morning, there'd be 3 days of food in the supermarkets. That spells famine. So that motivates me to do everything I can to look after local food security. So that is the context of my mind, right? Before I take you to the trees. Although there are a few native hazels there as well, but they are cultivars. That means that people have been working on them, selecting the varieties and propagating the varieties that have bigger nuts and more nuts, so more food per tree, higher yield. Now all these cultivars, they do best when they have a native hazel as a pollinator. Now it might be interesting to know for you that some trees get pollinated by insects and other trees get pollinated by the wind. Hazel gets pollinated by the wind. So then if you then have the piece of information that cultivars that have a high yield, more nuts, bigger nuts, need a pollinator that flowers and produces seed slightly ahead of time and more seed. You want that upwind from the cultivar. It's important. That's a design decision. If you have them downwind, you're wasting your time planting them. So design, having that information is important for placing your trees in an orchard. And I trust that Tara and Ananda were doing that when they were designing it, because they were my students. So this is a scythe, good old-fashioned scythe. This used to be the tool for harvesting fields and grains and mowing grass and making hay and everything. Nowadays it's been replaced by the engine, you know, the two-stroke engine and the strimmer. And I want to advocate for this old-fashioned tool because it doesn't use any petrol or oil. It just needs skill. And if a skilled scythesman competes on an ordinary agricultural task with a strimmer, the scythesman wins hands down. I've seen those competitions happening. It's this sort of gentle, rhythmical thing where it's a harmonious movement. I'm sort of gradually getting there. I don't do this every day either. And it's a little bit wet at the moment to be doing it, so you see it's lying down that I recommend. And loppers, okay? And these are extendable ones. I bought this in South America, but they are excellent for working your way into brush and you know, brambles and gorse and blackthorn and so on. So, and what I tend to do, I tend to wear very heavy gloves so that I can cut. You see there, this is a neglected part, okay? If you want to do some work there, just to demonstrate, what I see, my horticulturist eyes see nettles and brambles and so on. Yeah, even the blackberries that are coming with the brambles, I don't get to even half of them. So I need to create access. If I want my children to eat more of the blackberries here, they're free, they weren't even planted, I have to create a keyhole, an access, okay? And I can quickly do that just to demonstrate a little use of the tool. So basically, I only need to, you know, watch my legs, and with my sturdy gloves, I can quite quickly cut an inroad. Welding gloves are priceless for that. Okay, so I push this aside. And now I can get to the lovely blackberries. Okay. And now this otherwise unused resource becomes accessible. So I just offer this to the children. Here, you like some blackberries? Take your pick, one each. Do you like blackberries? No! These are nice and sweet. Yeah. The Blackberry Research Trust in England. So, and another book that I would recommend about permaculture design is the Earth Care Manual by Patrick Whitefield.